I'm Adam. As I said before, I'm head of product at the co-op. So today, I'm going to talk about why products might come and go, but needs never change. So if you looked at the product hunt, for example, you would see an avalanche of new products every day. So you'd be in the right mind to go, wow, we must have really complex evolving needs because of all these new products that continually come up. And actually, I'd argue it's completely the opposite, that we have very, very static needs that rarely change, and the way in which we service them with products and services just changes over time. And the reason that this might be useful for you is more just, for me, it's about a change in perspective. It's just taking a step left or taking a step right and saying, if I looked at my products from a different angle, what would I do differently? Would I consider the competitors to be very different? Which I think you probably would if you started to look at some of the more core fundamental needs that you were addressing. So to begin with, we're going to jump right back and begin to look at human evolution. There's no better place to start a talk than the evolution of man. So we've kind of gone from apes to Neanderthals to Homo sapiens, to where we are today. And throughout all of that time, if you were to track our evolutionary progress on a graph, it might look something like that, where you've kind of got a kick up at the end, where a lot of academic research would say that civilization has really caused our mental evolution to kick on. So it is somewhat of a kick on at the end of the curve. If you were to then layer in our technological evolution, it would probably look like that, where the curve is just exponential right now. You've got AI, machine learning, everything else that's coming along. So how is technology developing faster than humans are evolving ourselves? What needs are they serving if that technology is running at a faster pace? Which is something that kind of kept me up at night, and we kept wondering about this at the co-op. What is going on, and what can we do? How can we think about our products differently to try and service that? And ultimately, we always just come down to what are the core fundamental needs? So I'd argue that any product or service you take, you can always get it down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If it's not servicing somewhere on this hierarchy of needs, then it's not really a fundamental need. So Maslow would argue that there are 5 needs in a pyramid that you've got to service them one after another. And the first need is a physiological need. I have a need to breathe, I have a need to eat, I have a need to stay alive. And if I can't sustain those needs, then it doesn't matter about anything else. I just need to service that to begin with. Second of all would be safety. Quite simple, I need to be safe, I need to be sheltered, I need to forage for resources, is the second one. The third one then moves on to love and belonging, and how you want to spend time with family and friends, and you want to belong into a group. Fourth would then be esteem, and your rank within that group, how you feel about yourself. And then finally, self-actualization, which is a place I think very few people actually ever end up getting, which is just content, where it's I've achieved everything I need to achieve, and I have nothing else to do. So a very learned role where you consider giving back. So you almost invert that pyramid and go, how can I give back now I've satisfied all of my needs? So I'd argue that if you take any product or service, ultimately it's servicing one of these needs in some way, shape, or form. Because if it's not, then it's not servicing a core need that we've had for the last 5,000, 40,000, 400,000 years that's just never changed. If you take cave paintings were the internet 0.1. That was the need to communicate information. This is servicing a safety need where you're clearly being told, I don't quite think you can make it out, buffaloes are dangerous and buffaloes might kill you. So that's what that cave painting's telling you. It's servicing a safety need. It's trying to keep you safe. And we've then moved on to books. So then we started to write in books, buffaloes are dangerous, they've got sharp horns. And now we put it on Wikipedia and we go, buffaloes are dangerous, they've got sharp horns, you might stay away from them. Fundamentally, all of those products, despite the technological evolution there just being an absolute, an influx, is just the same. It's servicing the same core need. It's not doing anything fundamentally different. And I know that this is quite abstract when you talk about it in this level, but if you just bring it down to an everyday products that you use, and you look at the weather, and you look at the weather app. So as you might be able to tell from the accent, I'm from Manchester. I know what rain looks like. I don't need the Yahoo weather app when I open it to show me a picture of rain and go, that might be what it looks like outside. I'd argue that when I open the weather app, I don't want to know what the weather is. I don't want to know what the humidity is. I don't want to know what the dew point is. I don't want to know any of that. What I want to know is, do I need an umbrella today? Do I need to wear a jumper today? And all of that's a safety need. So I'm using this product to service my safety needs. Which, like I say, 40,000 years ago, the competitor to the weather app was looking out of the cave and seeing if it was raining and going yeah, I'm all right, I can go out. That was the competitive set at that time. But fundamentally, the need that it's done has not changed. And this is where, if you begin to understand what that need is, like just drilling down a few levels from like this complex, abstract needs that we've created, you can begin to look at really good alternatives. And you've seen this with Alexa. So I can now use Alexa and just go, do I need an umbrella today? And Alexa will go, nope, don't need an umbrella today. That could kill the weather app, because it's actually just servicing the need that I've got. It's recognizing that that's the fundamental need. Whenever we talk about needs, we always talk about drills for some reason. And I think it's because of this quote from Theodore Levitt, the economist, who said that people don't want a quarter-inch drill. They just want a quarter-inch hole in the wall. So first of all, like, someone tell Bosch really, really quickly, because they still think drill's all about the size of the hole and the length of the bit. I think that's a whole different set of needs that they're trying to service with some of their marketing. But yeah, like, since when did you buy a drill and care about the size of the hole in the wall? I'd argue that it's completely wrong. You don't even want a hole in the wall if you can avoid it. I want to hang a coat on the wall. That's what I want to do. I don't even want a drill. You could take it a stage further and go, I want to put some pictures up on the wall. That's what I want to do. So if you're Bosch and you're focusing on the size of the hole and the length of the drill bit and the power of the drill, and I'm coming along and going, actually, I just wanted to put a picture on the wall, and Blue Tack does a great job of that, or No Nails does a great job of that, that's a great competitor to the drill, I'd argue. And actually, if you look at hanging a picture on the wall, that's serving a need of like esteem and love and belonging. Do you know, I want to be reminded. I want a nostalgic element. That's what I really want to see. Instagram is doing that. So could you actually argue that Instagram is a competitor to the drill? If we all start using Instagram, do we not need a drill anymore? You can bet that Bosch and Black & Decker don't think Instagram is their competitor. But if you take this down to this fundamental needs basis, you can begin to draw and tie all these things together. Look at travel. So the airline industry, if you take business class on British Airways and you said to them, who are your competitors? They might say KLM, previously might have said Monarch, Flybe, Virgin Atlantic. They could have said anything like that. When I go and travel business, why do I want to do that? I want to do that for two reasons. Safety. So within safety needs is resource scavenging, which is making money, which is never a great way of starting a business meeting. Don't ever sit down and go, I'm resource scavenging today. I'd like you to buy my product. Just doesn't work very well. But fundamentally, you just want to connect with someone. That's what you want to do. You want to build that connection so you can do business with them. So if you start to take that at that level and go, okay, if it's a need about belonging and a need about communicating together, then isn't Skype a competitor for business class on British Airways? And that's a legitimate thing. Like British Airways right now genuinely consider video conferencing as one of their biggest competitors in business class, because it does the same job. And this is what I mean about taking this step left or this step right. If you just move to the side, then all of a sudden you can begin to see different products and services that you would never have considered to be your competitors. You start to realize that actually they're doing something very, very similar. You take Uber. Uber, if you look at it at the simplest jobs level, takes you from one place to another. And that's what most people do. So if you said, who are Uber's competitors, you would say Lyft, Get, a black cab, walking, cycling, they're the competitors. Take it, ask why. Like, why am I going from one place to another? Like, one of the main things that people were doing with Uber was getting something to eat. So then they launched Uber Eats. You could actually argue that Asda's a competitor to Uber. One of the biggest markets for Uber is people going and doing a big shop when they don't have a car. Well, what if Asda home delivery takes off and goes incredible? Then people don't need Uber in the same way, because it's servicing that same need. Nobody has a core need of just moving around. Like, we don't just randomly move around all day and be like, oh yeah, this is great, like I have a need just to continue to move. We move because of a purpose. We move because we need to go and service a need somewhere. So if you look left and right, you can begin to see them. And the last example that I'm going to use is McDonald's. So I don't know if you know about the study that was done with McDonald's milkshakes, but McDonald's wanted to sell more milkshakes. Everyone wants to sell more of their product. And they asked people, what can we do to sell more? And people said, more flavors and make it cheap. It's definitely like the worst questions you can ever ask. So sensibly, McDonald's said, we're not going to do that. So they changed the question and they just said, what would you have bought if you didn't buy this product? It was quite simple. They looked at the data, and did you know over half of all milkshakes at McDonald's are sold before 8 o'clock in the morning in the US? Which is crazy. Yeah, I was like that. I thought the only milkshakes sold before 8 a.m. were when people were pissed on a Saturday morning, and they wouldn't go over and they were like, I need a milkshake. Over half were sold, so they began to ask, what would you have bought instead? People said porridge. People said a bagel. The thing that people really wanted was to be full until lunchtime. It was, I don't want a snack. So I just want something that'll sit really heavy on my stomach. People also said that they wanted to be entertained. You know, I was like, I'm bored, I've got a long commute, and I wanted something to entertain me. So I was actually just servicing a physiological need. That's all it was doing. Its competitor set wasn't Dunkin' Donuts or anybody else. Its competitor set was Weight Watchers or Asda or Tesco or anything like that. And it just helps you look left and right. And that is why, if you buy a McDonald's milkshake, it's a blob of ice cream in a cup, is because the way that you better serve those needs is by making it thicker. You don't add more flavors or make it cheaper. So in summary, just remember what the core needs are. Remember these 5 needs. Your product or service will relate to these 5 needs in some way, shape, or form for 100%. And if it doesn't, then you should probably start to worry and figure out why you don't align to them. So all this is about is literally just taking a step left, taking a step right, looking at your product or service from a different angle to begin to understand the needs that it might address. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Fantastic stuff. I feel like we've suddenly strayed into applied philosophy. It's quite eye-opening. My first question is, have you ever been with a client and applied some of this and found that you're actually challenging their whole raison d'etre, their whole business model?
So whenever I've applied this to some clients, they just think like your head's in the cloud, and they're just kind of like, you're a million miles away from this. You know, I remember, so I spent some time working at Asda and Walmart. So they were serving physiological needs, like you're just keeping people alive. And when you say that to them, like, no, we're not. We're adding value, like we're making people's lives better. Like, no, keeping people alive. So people struggle sometimes with like the abstraction and understanding that. But the minute that you can begin to go to people, like, well, do you know if there's an uptake in this market over here, you might suffer? And then I think people begin to step back and go, oh, okay, like now I can begin to see the linkages, especially like the Uber one. You know, that's something we've spoken about before, that like home delivery of food is a competitor to Uber, whereas you might never have thought about it in that way unless you begin to look at like Maslow's needs and rank it from there.
And from asking such fundamental questions, have you ever delivered a totally different product to the one that they were expecting to deliver?
I think it's helped us consider the competitor set and widen out what we would do. I spent some time working at TravelX, and we were looking at foreign currency, and that's a really interesting one because foreign currency isn't a need. Like, you don't have a need to have money. Like, your need is to have money to service something that exists in the hierarchy of needs. There isn't, again, like, you just don't have it for the sake of having it. And that was a really challenging one to try and apply, because it was like, oh, what is the core need? The core need could be any of those that you really want to service with money. Yep. So we ended up looking at how we could broaden out the products and how we could begin to talk about travel through the experiences that you get rather than through the currency itself, because the currency itself was kind of like pointless. It's
so sideways to apply. I'm thinking, is anybody sitting there with an itch thinking, oh, we're working on this, and I think there's something in what's just been presented there, but what does Adam think about how this applies?
Or is anyone sat there going, that's wrong?
Yes.
That's a load of rubbish.
Yes, please.
So what we've always, or what I personally try to do is, it's kind of like the 5 whys. Like, take the reason that the product exists, and if you ask why 5 times, normally you end up like kind of in and around this position. So we've typically just always applied the 5 whys and documented what those might look like. And like I say, you're there or you're thereabouts, you probably no more than 1 or 2 away from that. I mean, if you take even like coming to a conference like this, you know, like why have you turned up today? I was like, because I want to learn. All right, well, why did you want to learn? Like, ultimately, it might be because you want to get more money, because you want a promotion. It might be you want to raise up within your peer group, and you want that esteem of kind of being learned within a group. You actually might be in the pursuit of self-actualization, where you want to give back, which is often like why people want to speak. It's like, oh, I've had some great experiences, and I want to give back. So even like being here today, you can kind of look at that and go, there's reasons there. Is the reason that you're here today? Even though you might think it's like, oh, because I want to have fun, or I want to learn. Like, ultimately, when you ask those 5 whys, you'll get down to it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest one's always money, because money is just a facilitation. So if you look at the history of money, people had something and somebody else had it. So I had a banana and you had an apple, and I really, really wanted an apple. So I had to find somebody else that had a banana but really, really wanted an apple. The other way around, sorry. And actually, currency is just like a mediator of an exchange. So currency is meaningless. It's only the value that we attach to it that means it's actually worth anything. So then that's really hard, because really it's just facilitating exchanges within that hierarchy of need, where I have something physiological and you have something physiological and we want to switch them. And currency is a way of doing it. And like I said before, that was really hard to get people bought into that being why currency existed in the first place. It's like, who doesn't want more money? But when you start to look at it like philosophically and you go, it doesn't mean anything other than the abstract value that we attach to it, then you look at it differently. So yeah, financial products was really difficult to try and apply it in there.
You planted a really intriguing seed quite early on. At the top of the triangle is contentment. And you sort of hinted that if you're servicing a need at that end, you're basically helping somebody give back. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had any of those?
Yeah, so at the co-op, so the co-op exists for social good. We exist to return money to communities and to people. All of our profits go back into communities and our members who are effectively our customers. So the co-op, when you begin to look at it, is at the self-actualization end of like business, where its whole purpose is just to give back. It's content, it did what it set out to do, so now it's all about giving back. Yeah. If you look at being a co-op, so the co-op started in 1844 because people were putting chalk into flour, and people were dying and getting ill from having flour. So the co-op said, but there's a better way of doing this. We'll all band together, we'll buy some flour, and we'll take it from there. And we'll reinvest our money into the community, into the people that are buying the flour. You look at the co-op today and you'd say the co-op's got no competitive advantage. The co-op's just the same as everybody else on the high street. Everybody sources ethically, everyone doesn't put chalk in flour, everyone gives back to communities. And you can look at that and go, yeah, but that's because the co-op won. The co-op was there to stand for a better way of doing business, and now businesses have all aligned to that, so the co-op won. So then the co-op is in this position of like self-actualization, where it can kind of be very content, and it can look at the food market that it exists today and go, we create that market. We might not be number one, but it only exists because of us. So yeah, the pursuit of self-actualization is interesting, but I think the co-op is the closest organization to getting to that, like not just the co-op, but like obviously cooperatives as a way of doing business.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Adam and all our speakers for the first session, please. Thanks, Adam.